But first, let's talk COVID. Testing backlogs, hospitals at capacity and isolation rules grinding businesses to a halt. We're not even at the peak of Omicron yet. So are we really prepared? Were we really prepared for the full force of the Omicron wave? Joining us now is the COVID Response Minister, Chris Hipkins. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start. Do you know what's happening outside Parliament?
Well, I get a bit of a ringside seat here for the view from my office, and there's a lot of police out there this morning. So all strength to them. They've got a really difficult job.
You haven't heard anything about a briefing from police or anything?
No. Look, I don't get briefed on those sorts of things. Those ultimately decisions for the police. I wish them all the best. They've obviously got a tough day ahead.
Have you received advice on when the mandates can end, when all restrictions can be lifted, when we move out of the red traffic light system? Have you asked for advice on dates for those things?
Ultimately, yes, we keep that under regular review.
What have they said? What are the dates that they're proposing at the moment, Minister?
Well, if you look at the court case from last week, for example, where the mandate around the police and around the Defence Force was actually overturned by the courts, the advice that we've had back from the police already is actually the mandate has served its purpose and they don't think that they're going to need another one. Defence, on the other hand, have indicated that they do think that they'll need to do something because when they deploy internationally, and particularly to the Pacific, they often need to require people to be vaccinated before they can be deployed. So it's more complicated for them. But we keep all of those under regular review. And the ultimate advice, though, is that once we get over this current peak, so we're currently heading towards the peak, we don't know when we'll hit the top of that peak. Once we get over this current peak and start to come down the other side, then actually some of those, again, we can look at all of our restrictions, including the vaccine mandates.
Okay.
And some of those things can start to change.
So at the moment, you're saying the police are fine to lift the mandates, so those officers will be back at work soon. That's your understanding?
Look, ultimately, I'm not dictating to the police exactly what they do. That's up to them. But in terms of the mandate, at this point, I'm not envisaging an additional mandate being put in place for the police. So
it's basically null and void at this point. For the rest of the mandates, are you working to a date? What's the advice on a date for lifting them?
It really varies by workforce. So if you look at our health workers, for example, they're likely to be in this and dealing with this for some time. And so there's a strong case there for that to be in place for longer. Some of those other workforces, it may be that we move sooner on those.
What sooner?
But ultimately, that's going to be dictated by the public health considerations, by making sure that we're dealing with COVID-19, not by what's happening out the front here today.
Totally, but what's sooner? What do the advice that you're getting, what does sooner mean? Does that mean in 3 weeks, starting from 3 weeks, or does that mean 1 month? One
of the challenges that we're grappling with, of course, is that we don't, the peak that we're dealing with and that we're, currently climbing towards, we don't know what that peak is going to be, and we don't know how long that's going to last. And if you look at international experience, some countries peaked quite quickly and then came down from their peak quite quickly. Others, stayed up at quite a high level for a more sustained period of time. We don't know which of those categories we're going to be in.
No, but you're getting modelling and you're getting dates, so why not just tell us what the model dates are?
They are guesses as much as anything else.
What are they, Minister?
But the range in them is anything from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. So it just wouldn't be meaningful.
OK, so what, starting in, say, 3 weeks and then possibly a couple of months after that?
Could be.
OK. All right. I want to talk about the testing. We had Dr Bloomfield come out yesterday and apologise for basically misleading the public. And as a result of misleading the public, people went to get tested and many of those people actually never got their tests checked, so they were waiting in vain. Do you apologise? Do you echo that apology this morning?
Oh, absolutely. And, that they will get a result, but it's often, well delayed beyond what we would reasonably expect. The targets certainly are not being met there. We've switched up the system now, so people are getting rapid antigen tests. They're getting a result within 15 minutes of doing the test. And that's a huge improvement. And as a result, we're getting a lot more test results and much more quickly. But it's clear that the capacity that we were told was there in terms of the daily processing for unpooled samples, and there's a difference between pooled samples and unpooled samples.
Yeah.
It wasn't as high as it should have been, and it certainly wasn't as high as we were told it was.
Yeah. So you've apologised for that this morning, because obviously you guys were putting out press releases saying the same thing. You've apologised for that this morning. Are you going to ask more questions next time Dr Bloomfield tells you something?
Well, I mean, this was pretty rigorously tested as well, including we had an independent technical advisory group have a look at our testing capacity a wee while back as well, and also give us advice on that. So, in terms of us asking questions, it hasn't been an absence of questions. It's clear that the answers to those questions didn't turn out to be accurate enough, and so yes, that prompts a range of additional questions that, of course, we'll get into. But the main focus at this point is on two things: making sure that people can get tested, and rapid antigen tests are going to be the main source of that for the foreseeable future, and then making sure that the backlog that is there gets cleared as quickly as it can.